Hello and welcome to this episode of Inside Out. This month we look at an issue that will undoubtedly make up much of the conversation in 2018, GDPR. To find out more about it, we headed down to the IAB offices in central London for a quick chat.
The GDPR is all about personal data, so it's really important for people to understand and companies to understand whether the information they have and process is personal data. But once that has been cleared up, the GDPR effectively boils down to sort of three things. First of all, you need to justify why you want to process personal data. Secondly, you need to record it, so there's a lot about accountability. And thirdly, you need to basically communicate that to individuals, so transparency is the third aspect of it. So think about it as justification, accountability and transparency. That's really what the GDPR is all about. We usually recommend that, first of all, companies assign responsibility to either an individual in your organization or a group of individuals. So once that responsibility is assigned, you probably want to put together a sort of project team or a task force or whatever you want to call it that deals with the compliance process at the company. And then the first major step that everyone wants to take, and it's quite a laborious thing, but it's very, very important, is to actually carry out what we consider to be what we call an information audit. So you want to find out what information you have, where it's stored, who it's shared with, what it looks like. Again, coming back to the point that you need to identify whether the information that you do have is personal data, and for that reason is captured by the GDPR. You can probably tell by the noise that is currently being created around the GDPR that it will have some major impacts on the industry. I think companies will have to make changes to their processes in a way that perhaps they previously never had to do before, in the way that they collect data and the way they communicate the collection of that data and the use of that data to individuals. So I think we will see, even as individuals, as consumers ourselves, I think we will see quite a major shift as we approach the 25th of May deadline and afterwards. I think consumers generally, there's always a challenge around communicating to individuals the value they receive as a result or in turn for basically sharing their data. I think sometimes that's of course more visible. Think about some social media platforms, or think about the content that you consume on a news site, for example. I think people are increasingly savvy about this and understand that what they receive is a result of them sharing data with the companies that they interact with. Of course, there's always more that can be done. From a self-regulatory perspective, the industry has put a lot of effort into it through an initiative called App Choices, or better known as App Choices, which is represented by a little blue icon as well. So I think there's various ways that the industry has tried to talk to individuals about this value exchange. But again, a lot more can be done, and I think a lot more will have to be done as a result of the GDPR. I mean, we always recommend from the IAB's point of view that effectively everyone that is involved in digital advertising in whatever form, at whatever company, should have a basic understanding of the GDPR. We've got lots of resources, other people have lots of resources as well to bring people up to speed and get sort of in a digestible way for people to understand what the GDPR is about. I think that's very important. Another thing I would point out is probably it's always worth speaking to your peers. The GDPR requires a level of collaboration I think we've never really seen before in the industry. And as a result, I think there's no harm at all in sort of trying to get in touch with some of your peers in other companies to understand what they do to comply with the GDPR and whether you can share some best practice around that.
Fantastic insight there from Yves. For more on GDPR, there's a host of excellent content on the IAB website. But for now, let's take a look back on what was a bumper start to the year at VE. First off, we welcomed Lady Moan, OBE, to the company as a non-exec board member. We also launched our very first international Golden Quarter report using exclusive VE data to track consumer trends in online retail across 15 international markets. And to cap it off, we won our first award of the year at the European DigiDay Awards for our work with Athletics Ireland and VE Media. For more on any of these stories, check out the news section of the V site. That's all for this edition of Inside Out. If you did enjoy this episode, please don't forget to share it on social. Thanks again for watching, and see you next month.